Today is day 5 of the Karen Reed trial. I'm going to give you my daily recap. I anticipated that we would hear something in court regarding the Kate Peters affidavit that was filed over the weekend, and we didn't hear anything. There's no information about that at all. The prosecution gets right into calling their first witness for the day, who is Whiffin, and he is the digital forensic analyst that works for Celebrite. Mr. Whiffin was on the stand the whole first part of the day. The prosecution's questioning lasted a really long time and only gave Mr. Alessi a few minutes to do his cross-examination, and then we had to end for the day, and the ARCA witness voir dire started right after the lunch break. So we will see Mr. Whiffin back on the stand for the rest of cross-exam in the morning tomorrow. Brennan starts off by laying all the foundational questions that the jury is going to need to know. What is a artifact? What is celebrite? Etc., etc., etc. First thing that he gets into is the question about the 2:27:40 a.m. internet query that happened at that time, and we wanted to know how relevant the query is to that timestamp. It was actually the time when the tab for the browser was open, not for when the query was made, is what Whiffin is testifying. That's from Jen McCabe's phone downloads. He reached back out to Richard Green, who is going to be the defense's digital forensic analyst, to speak about this issue and clear up any confusion, and Mr. Green never got back to him. Then he forensically examined the data extracted from the rest of Jennifer McCabe's phone. He was also sent the extraction from John O'Keefe's phone. He puts together this whole PowerPoint presentation as evidence. I think that this presentation was extremely thorough. I thought it was a lot easier to follow than what transpired last trial. I think that aside from the jury maybe being a little bit bored, it is easy to follow for them. He talks about how Jen McCabe's phone had the iOS 14. There was some confusion on which iOS it was. I'm sure we'll hear more about that from Richard Green. And then the PowerPoint breaks it down really easily for the jury, so they're going to be able to refer back to this. It's in evidence to see all of Jen McCabe's phone usage, and then later on we get into all of John O'Keefe's Apple Health data and his phone usage, and it's all kind of laid out together in a really organized timeline, and I think the jury will really appreciate that. He testifies that the Google search is actually made in a tab that was opened at 2:27, but the search was made after 6 a.m., and this is the prosecution's whole story, is that Karen Reed asked Jen McCabe to do that search, and the defense is saying, no, that's not how it went down. But that's what he's testifying here to today. He's saying that there was nothing deleted from Jen McCabe's phone either. Whiffin starts to go over John O'Keefe's Apple Health data and his phone location data, and he lays out a really interesting map. Basically, they get into the phone's path to 34 Fairview. They originally passed the house, and then they did a 3-point turn and went back. And I believe at one point, like, Jen McCabe is texting John then too. The driver of the vehicle that John's phone is in stops in front of the flagpole area, whereas before I believe they said that she stopped more in front of the driveway. And if you want to know like the specifics of like the pin and like the radius of like 5 meters and everything, if that's important to you, I would go back and watch his testimony. There was just a lot of explicit detail that I couldn't take notes on everything. At 12:24:38, the vehicle came to a complete stop. And then at 12:24:37, we have Apple Health data registering 3 flights of stairs climbed. But you can tell from the location data that's during the time that the vehicle is moving. So the defense is going to argue that this is the time when John O'Keefe was in the home potentially and going up or down the basement stairs. But the prosecution is saying that he was actually in the vehicle, and the health data records a 3-meter increase as a flight climb. So that's when we see 3 flight climb events. So they're arguing that he could have been like driving on a hill. I'm not believing any of that though. It's noted then at 12:32:16, the phone took the last steps recorded and did not move until 6:04:01 a.m. That's when Carrie Roberts says that she finds his phone underneath his body. We get into the temperature data, which is kind of interesting. They didn't really bring this up the last trial. And who knew that your iPhone is recording temperature data in the event that, your phone is overheating or whatnot. This is the screenshot, and you can see where the phone increases in temperature or decreases. There's a full comprehensive report of everything that's super easy to digest from the timeline. It shows Karen Reed's phone calls and texts from Jen McCabe, and everything recorded all together. So like I said before, the jury is really going to appreciate this. Alessi gets to do just a little bit of cross-examination. He enters some page of the report into evidence. He goes over the log, notes in his report that he only mentioned the incoming text name when it was Jen McCabe. There was an incoming text from Brian Higgins to John O'Keefe, but in his report, he doesn't say that it's from Brian Higgins, which is really interesting. Alessi is pointing out that the whole time he's doing this report, everything is in meters. And because we're in the United States, we don't use the metric system. So he's trying to kind of argue everything and do the conversion into feet and yards for the jury. Alessi points out that the last human interaction with the phone, something that a human would have had to do, is when it was locked with the lock button at 12:32:09. So John O'Keefe presumably locked his phone. The next entry with health data is at 12:32:16, 7 seconds later. And this is the end of a health event. It's 36 steps, approximately 84 feet. So do with that information what you will. I am guessing that John O'Keefe gets out of the car. He's on his phone, sees a text from Jen McCabe or something, closes his phone out and locks it up, and then takes the steps to the house. And then we don't know where he goes because that's the last recorded entry. So that was just a half day of testimony. I'm going to go to part 2 to go over the voir dire with the ARCA crash daddies because it was a lot of info.